Let me try this whole thing again, because I can't seem to even start this video. Ugh, okay. Hi everybody, my name is Kelsey, and we're about to get very, very nerdy with my December wrap-up. So it is time to take a look at the last month of 2021, see how I ended out the year. And I am actually quite proud of how I did. I ended up reading 14 books. So if you saw my December TBR that I did with my husband, that was a whole mess. And I did not get to all of those books. There really was no way that was going to happen, to be honest. But I did get to quite a few of the ones that he really wanted me to get to. I got through quite a few of the kind of Christmassy books that I wanted to get to. So there's a whole section in the middle where all of my Christmas books are, because we were around Christmas. And I just, it was a hodgepodge of stuff. So let's just get right on into it and wrap up 2021. Taking a look at the stats first. Like I said, I read 14 books, and that was over 3,825 pages, which was 3 audiobooks, 3 physical books, 1 ebook, and 7 mixed. And then I had a little bit of a wider age category this month, because I read 1 children's book, 2 middle grade, 3 YA, and 8 adult. And my genres were also you've got your staple ones that I always read, but there's quite a few more here, because we had 3 mystery books, 5 romance, 1 contemporary, 2 fantasy, 1 dystopian, 1 nonfiction, and 1 historical fiction. And then for star ratings, pretty normal for me. We had 3 5 stars, 8 4 stars, and 3 3 stars. So I started out this month with participating in the Historical Romance Readathon, which takes place mostly on Instagram. Now it does take place on YouTube because the people who run it are YouTubers, but I mostly participate on Instagram. So the first 3 books, the first 3 books that I read for this month were all part of that. So the first one I picked up was When He Was Wicked by Julia Quinn. This is the 6th, I think that's right, the 6th Bridgerton story in the series. That was a really weird way of saying that. So I did end up giving this one 5 stars, though I will say objectively it's not my favorite in the series. I still think that one is a tie at this point, now that I've kind of had some time away from them, between Colin's story, which is the 4th book, and Anthony's story, which is the 2nd one. This book follows Francesca Bridgerton, which is the 6th sibling, and it's a little bit different because we follow her and this guy named Michael Sterling. Now, Francesca actually did get married to Michael's cousin, and Michael's kind of like a rogue, but he's fallen head over heels in love with Francesca, but she has fallen in love and has married his cousin, and so he's kind of just kind of been content with the fact that they're very, very close. Well, this book takes place about 2 years after the death of this cousin, which was very sudden, and so there's a falling out between Michael and Francesca because of that, and then the story takes place from there. I will say huge trigger warnings in this one for miscarriages and talks of miscarriages, and kind of just it's a constant theme within this book, as well as if you are not someone who likes illnesses, I guess, because there's a continual illness that takes place within this book as well. So it's just very interesting to see the two of them, and it's a very different take than what I'm used to with the other Bridgerton siblings, but I love a good Bridgerton book. It's kind of at this point, I'm gonna love them all. So I was curious about this because I'd seen hints to this story and some of the other books and some of the other kind of second epilogues that take place in these books about her having married someone and then something happening to this husband, and I was very curious what that story was. So I wanted to get into this one, but Francesca doesn't play a huge part in a lot of the past books, so at this point in the series, we don't know a whole lot about them because we've got her and 2 others which were actual children in the first book. So these are characters we don't know a whole lot about, but I did enjoy seeing this take on it. It did take place partially in Scotland, which I did appreciate, and I did like seeing their relationship. Is it the most amazing romance I've ever read? No, but I loved the 2 of them, and I did really enjoy the chemistry between these two characters and just kind of seeing where that leads. And I love the Bridgerton series. I love this family, so it was really cool to see all of these characters that we have come to love in the past books. So this was just, it was just kind of okay. But did I still give it 5 stars? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And then I followed that up with A Night to Surrender, which is the first in the Spindle Cove series by Tessa Dare. This is part of the buddy read that I do every single month with my friends Taylor and Brooke on Instagram, and we decided that we were going to go series by series. So this one has 5 in it, and a few novellas here and there, so we decided to start the first one at the beginning of the month, and then we're going to talk about her again a little bit later. But this one is not my favorite. I don't really know what happened. I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. This whole series takes place in this place called Spindle Cove, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's kind of like a seaside town where women of delicate constitutions or people who are wallflowers and, you know, all of those types in society, not accepted, not wanting to do the norm, that kind of thing, will come here to better their health, is really kind of what it's thought to be, but really it's just a place for a bunch of women who don't fit into society to come here and live and be free, you know, just kind of do what they want, be who they are, that kind of thing. So it follows the girl who is kind of in charge of this whole town. Her name is Susanna. She's really the one who's taken this on because this is her hometown. She was born here, and it has just become a place where people can come to be themselves, and so she's kind of been in charge of all the activities and stuff that happen in this town. And then on the reverse side of that, we have a soldier character named Bram, who has basically come, he's been injured in the war, and he's come to this town because Susanna's father is like a pretty high-up general, and he's trying to get him to talk to someone so he can get back into action, basically. No one thinks he should go back into action quite yet, and he's like, yes, please, I want that. So, trigger warnings for kind of like PTSD and medical trauma and stuff like that because of Bram's past issues. Or not even Bram, no, it's Susanna's past issues. She's had some medical things that she's been really iffy about, so there's just some trauma surrounding that. So I think my biggest issue with this book in particular is this is not the Tessa Dare writing I was used to. I was ready for all the funny moments. I was ready for like all the steam and all of the chemistry and everything that I've gotten from the Girl Meets Duke series, and that's not what I got in this book. I think my biggest issue with this is that I did not believe our main couple. Were the steamy scenes steamy? Yes. But did I believe the chemistry between them? No. And there was just some things where like he acted a certain way in certain situations that made me feel real iffy about who he was as a person, and I'm not sure, like, I felt like she deserved better than him. I'm just saying. But I still have very mixed feelings on this because I did like parts of it. I did love the characters of Susanna. I loved this town. I loved seeing all these girls in this town because this series is going to follow the characters from this town and different, like, their respective romances. And so I loved the town. I loved the certain other aspects. I loved the plot of the story, but the romance, which was why I was here, was just really iffy. So it got 3.5 stars because I still enjoyed parts of it, but I don't know, like I didn't really believe the romance in here. And then I followed that one up with the first in the Scandal series, I think is what it's called, which is the Book of Scandal by Julia London. This is a trilogy, so I do have the other 2 books. And this follows our main character, Nathan Gray, and his wife, who have been estranged for quite a few years. And there's this book that the princess at this time is releasing surrounding the scandalous lives of the Prince of Wales. That's who it is. So she claims she has this book, and so she's going to release it to the public. And there's rumors that this guy's estranged wife is going to be part of this book. So he goes to get her and basically like forces her back to their country estate. So it's like a second chance romance. So just huge trigger warnings for child death and the repercussions of that, because like there's a lot of trauma with our main characters surrounding that. So just kind of like keep that in mind if that's something that really affects you. But I did end up giving this one 4 stars. I loved this character, like our main female character. She was so strong, and I loved seeing her kind of stand up for herself. I loved seeing the 2 of these characters grow towards one another, but I will say I had some issues with the main guy. I don't know what it is. Like, I can't put my finger on it, but some of the situations that he was in, or he put himself in, some of the like more sexual situations with his wife felt a little forced, and it felt a little icky at times. Like, there were some times where, like, it wasn't that there wasn't consent, but it felt like the consent was, like, borderline iffy, and so, like, some of the situations I wasn't in love with. But most of the plot was good. I liked seeing these two characters grow together. I liked seeing them kind of get over their past issues and kind of seeing this world. I thought that was really fascinating. So I did really enjoy this. I'm very curious to see where we're going to go with this series because, again, each one follows someone different. I know that the second one, we met the character in this book, so I'm curious to see about that one because that one takes place in Scotland, and y'all know how I feel about that. So I did enjoy this, but I'm not sure it's my favorite romance of all time. I don't know, I've been removed from it for quite a while, so I'm trying to also remember all my thoughts on it, but I did remember enjoying like 95% of the time. The 5%, there was moments I was like, I don't know if I like that situation, and then, but it was never like there was anything outright gross. I don't know if I'm explaining this at all well. I had moments where I was icky, but overall it was okay. I also will say this is a great book for people who like that political intrigue, you know, like society kind of thing, because there's a lot in here. There's a lot in here. And then I ended up finishing the Hawthorne Legacy by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, which is the second to the Inheritance games. So this one is the second in a series, but the first one, the Inheritance games, follows our main character, Avery. So Avery is kind of struggling. She lives with her stepsister. She's just, you know, she's struggling to make ends meet. She's working to help her sister pay rent, like things like that. And then one day, she kind of gets called in because this really rich guy, the Hawthorns, the head Hawthorne guy, dies and leaves his entire fortune to her. But he really likes riddles and puzzles and stuff, so like she moves into this house with the 4 teenage grandsons of this guy, and they're all trying to figure out what the heck is going on, why it was her, and the grandfather has kind of left clues for them. So the story continues in this one, and it is twisty-turvy, flip-flopped all over the place. Like, there are so many twists in the story. I'm gonna leave my November wrap-up above because honestly, I have the same feelings about this that I did the first one. There's nothing incredible about it. There's no incredible, you know, writing. There's nothing incredible about the plot development, but for some reason you can't stop reading and you just need to know. Like, I hated almost all the characters in this story. Well, not hated, but like, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of the characters in this story. There's like a handful, like 2 that I can stand, and it's not even the main ones. They're all side characters. But like, I can't stop reading. Like, I need to know. There's so many twists and turns in this story that honestly, like, you could see coming, I'm sure, but I was so invested in it that I couldn't put it down. I don't know, like, it just kind of keeps you on the edge of your seat. It always keeps you guessing. There's always something else, like, on the horizon. You know, like, there's no time to breathe. There's always something happening. So I'm very curious to see how the third one's gonna go, because there is going to be a third one that comes out this year, and I feel like the story wrapped up in this one. Like, I feel like we don't need the third one. I've read what it's about, and I still feel like, you know, if you're kind of tired of this writing or tired of these characters after the second book, you're probably good to stop if you really wanted to. I would say you probably don't want to stop after the first one, because we get all the answers we wanted in the first book, we got in this book. So I'm so happy that I did finally read these. I'm glad I read them back to back, because I feel like I would have missed a lot if I had tried to put a few months in between. So I'm a little worried about how the third one's going to go when that one comes out. But I still really enjoyed it. I still really loved kind of this, you know, political, I mean, it's not really political. It follows this really rich family. So like private school, if you like private school drama stuff, it's kind of like that because it follows a really rich family. But yeah, I don't know. I couldn't stop reading. Again, nothing spectacular about the story. I just couldn't put it down. It's the weirdest feeling. My next book was, I don't know, it could possibly be my favorite of the month. Like, looking back on all the books that I still have to talk about, this could be my favorite. But that is The Dollmaker of Krakow, which I've learned is actually how it's pronounced, by R.M. Romero. There's actually a little, like, I don't know, accent thing over the O, so I just have been saying it wrong the entire time. This one ends up getting 5 stars. I adored this book. Like, I don't even know if I can explain to you how incredible the story is. This is also a debut novel, which I don't quite think I can grasp my brain around because it was so good. This follows a doll named Carolina who has come from the land of the dolls and has been put into the human world. She has been created by this doll maker who actually has some kind of magical ability because she comes to life, and he kind of has just created a friend is basically what he's done. But it's right at the time, it's set in Poland, and it's right at the time of Nazi occupation. So the town that they're in, Krakow, is taken over by Nazis, and it's right at the time where the dollmaker is just starting to kind of like step out of his comfort zone. He befriends this family that is a Jewish family, and then of course the Nazis come in and ruin everything. But it also kind of mirrors what's happening in the doll world as well, because at the time that Carolina has been taken out of the doll world, there's this kind of race of rats that have taken over her hometown and like killed a bunch of people, or a bunch of dolls. So it's really kind of paralleled, reminiscent for these two worlds, and just kind of seeing this group of people, or group of something, take over something else. So it's really interesting to see, because you see her as this doll maker is just trying to figure out what's going on, and it is heartbreaking. I have never had to try so hard not to cry at the end of a book, because I was finishing this up on my lunch break at work. So I was finishing listening to the story. I was so close to done, so I was like, I'm just gonna, finish it out real quick. And I really needed no one to walk by my door at that moment, because it was just like, I've never tried so hard to not cry, is what I'm trying to say. Because it so if you're a historical fiction person that really likes that kind of story, if you are someone who likes stories kind of set in that, Nazi occupation, World War II kind of setting, if you want a very different take on something, because this is set from the doll's perspective, and she has a very kind of young perspective, she understands what's going on. She completely can comprehend. She's not naive in that sense, but she has a very innocent way of looking at the world, kind of like a child would. So it's very interesting to see, because this is a very tough book. It's a very tough time to talk about. Like, it's rough. But to see it set in like a middle grade setting with like such a young person who's looking at the world a very specific way, it's just really fascinating. And I loved seeing it from her perspective, but it's beautifully, beautifully written. This author does have something coming out in, I think, in 2022, but I don't quite know what it is. But it has a stunning cover as well, so hopefully I'll be able to get my hands on that one as well. But seriously, I don't know if I can explain to you how good this book was, but if anything remotely interesting, even if it's just the cover looks pretty, anything about what I've said sounds interesting, please, please, please pick it up, because it was so good. It was so good. Alright, so we're starting off now all of my Christmas reads. So I'm going to try not to go into grave detail. I'll leave linked above my vlogs. I did go into pretty decent detail near the end of that, just kind of talking about all those books, because I believe all 5, if I am correct, of the books that I'm going to talk about here were all mentioned. Like, all of my Christmas books are mentioned in that vlog. Completely by accident, but that's how it worked out. So the first one I actually ended up picking up for Christmas and that vlog, without even really meaning to, was Once Upon a Winter's Eve by Tessa Dare. Now this is a novella set at Christmas in Spindle Cove, but it does take place after the first book. So we decided to read the first book earlier in the month, and then this one around Christmas. So again, I said this is a novella. It's like 80 pages on Kindle, like it's super, super quick. This book ended up getting 4.5 stars from me, because this is what I wanted the first book to be. Like, we all agreed in our Tessa Dare buddy read that, like, we wish they had been flipped, and, like, this couple was the one that the big book was about, and then the past couple could be what this little short novella was about, because this was exactly what I love about Tessa Dare. Her writing was incredible. She made me care about these characters. I felt the relationship in, like, 80 pages. I wanted them just continue, and, like, yeah. So, needless to say, I liked this one more. So this one follows Violet, and it does take place around Christmas. I believe they're at a Christmas party, and this soldier just stumbles in, and he is from the opposing team. I think he's got, I can't remember, French, maybe, like, an outfit on. What the heck am I trying to say? But he's wearing the wrong you know, soldier outfit is basically what I'm saying. And she kind of feels this connection to him, but she can't figure out why. And it turns out that this is actually the guy that she fell in love with when she was back in England, and they had kind of a thing and then a falling out, and he just went away, and that's why she's in Spindle Cove, to kind of get away from all of that. So it's this guy, and it's the two of them, and I love them. They're so cute. And I loved seeing them, and it was really interesting because Violet's thing is she really understands and really kind of comprehends all these different languages, and there's this kind of like game that they play with each other. Well, he'll just like bring up a language and start speaking in this language or reading in this language, and she's trying to figure out what it is, and it's just really cool. I don't know how to explain it, but like this 80 pages was so good. And then I followed that one up with the first half of this, which is The Holiday Present, which is a bind-up of 2 short stories by Joanna Lindsey, the first one being just The Present, and it is actually number 6 in the Mallory series, which you guys know I have been collecting and loving. So I wanted to get to this one. I would love to get to both, but I just ran out of time, which is fine because now I have the second half to read next year at some point. But like I said, it does follow the Mallory family. It basically takes place at the oldest Mallory's siblings' home, and like all of the family has come in for Christmas, and they find this present under the tree, and they're like, what the heck is this? Did they put this here? We don't know what this is. And so they all come down one night to open it up and see what it is, and it turns out to be the letters from their great-grandmother, who has been kind of speculated to be a gypsy. And so it's a collection, like a journal of letters of her and the Mallory that she married, and it's just, she's gonna give this to her family so that they can understand where they come from. And then we proceed into that story. So, was this the best thing I've ever read? No. Would you care about this if you didn't already care about the Mallory series? Also no. But it was really interesting to kind of see this other level to the family, because it does really follow these grandparents, but it also follows the oldest Mallory sibling and his romance that has been on and off and on, and it's a whole different beast in its own. And that's kind of why this story was given at this time. So like, it's really interesting to see all the different layers with that. But again, like, if you don't already like the Mallory series, then like you probably don't really care about this, but it is a cute little like romance story. You can read it without having read the rest of the series. Like, if you just found this bind up and decided to give it a try, it probably wouldn't hurt just to do that, but it means more if you know the Mallorys. So I was really excited that I did end up finishing it, because I do love Joanna Lindsey's writing style. You guys know this, but it makes me more excited to try to get into some more of the Mallory series. Oh, I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I don't think I said that. Then the next one that I ended up picking up was Carols and Chaos by Cindy Anstey, and this one I did end up giving 4 stars to. Now, did I love this book? No, I did not. It was a weird experience because I read this one right after reading The Holiday Present, which is a adult historical romance, and this is a YA mystery historical romance, so there's like a lot of different levels. But if you like Downton Abbey, I think you'll like this, and if you like the idea of historical romances, but you don't want any of the smutty scenes that come with it, again, I think you'll like this. So this one follows our 2 main characters, who I've already forgotten about, Kate and Matt. There we go. Now, Kate is a lady's maid, and Matt, I think, works in he's basically been upgraded to valet in this book, but he didn't used to work at this house. He's just working there for right now, but I'm not sure why. But they both work at this house, and somehow they get tied up in this counterfeiting scheme, and they're trying to find their friend who has gone missing, and that gets them into some stuff. So it's fast-paced. It kind of keeps you on your toes when you get to the end of the mystery elements of it. So if you like mystery and things like that, I think you'll really like that, because that is a big point of the plot. But if you're here for the romance, which I wouldn't say I entirely was. I was here for the plot. It's not anything like I expected. I don't know if I just was disappointed because I just read an adult book and this is YA, and so of course those are going to be different, but it was just generally okay. I will say the weird thing about this is the first half of the book, they're honed in on the romance. They're trying to build these 2 characters to want each other and be around each other and all of those cutesy little moments, while also trying to build the mystery plot, but that's on the back burner. And then once we hit halfway, it switches, and mystery is all forefront. We're going in on the mystery. We're trying to figure out all the stuff, and like the romance takes a backseat. And it just feels like this weird switch that I feel like could have been worked to work with each other better. I don't know, like it just, there was something about that like it didn't mesh well. It was just like an abrupt switch in the plot and kind of like the focus of the book, whereas I feel like it could have been worked in a little bit better. At least the mystery elements could have been worked in better in the beginning, and some of the romance elements maybe could have been worked in better at the, I don't know, but something halfway kind of clicked, and it just felt a little off. So yeah, it was just kind of okay. I liked the idea of all of the pieces of the story. It just didn't work for me on the execution portions. Next one I picked up was Skipping Christmas by John Grisham, which I ended up giving 3 stars to. So, I have lots of feelings on this one, but basically, my biggest issue with this is just rich white people problems. Like, that's all that happens in this book, because we're basically following this couple whose daughter has gone off with the Peace Corps for Christmas, and so he kind of decides, the father does, he kind of sits down and calculates how much Christmas costs, and how it's not going to be the same without their daughter, so he kind of calculates how much they spend, and it's a lot, and then he calculates how much a cruise would be, and it's significantly less. So he convinces his wife to skip Christmas. They don't do anything Christmassy, and they are going to leave on Christmas Day to go to this cruise, and their neighborhood does not like that. All their friends don't like that, because they've been doing the same things forever. Like, even at one point, our mom character is out at lunch with some of her friends. They're not really friends by proximity, maybe, but they're all working on like a charity together, and they're out at lunch, and she mentions the fact that they're skipping Christmas and skipping all of the things, which includes their annual Christmas Eve party. And one of these other women is like, well, what am I supposed to do on Christmas Eve now? And I'm just like, I don't know, figure it out. Like, it's not up to her to control your Christmas. There's a lot of things like that, and then like the entire neighborhood puts these giant Frosties on their roofs, and so they don't do that, and the entire neighborhood kind of takes it out on them. They send carolers to annoy them. Like, they do all of this stuff to annoy them to put up this Frosty, and it's honestly just the most ridiculous thing that's ever happened. Like, I can't. Anyway, I didn't like a lot of the people, so like maybe it was because the writing was so decent that I was supposed to hate these people. I don't know. So I watched the movie of this, which is Christmas with the Cranks, the day after I finished it. And I'm not gonna lie, I liked it better. I liked it better. But I think the biggest thing that I liked about it more is that in this book, I did not believe that our main couple cared about each other. Like, the only reason they were together was for their daughter. Why would they take this giant trip? It just felt like they couldn't stand each other. And then in the movie, they had more of an attraction towards one another. I mean, they were still ridiculous. They had all the ridiculousness that was in this book. But they felt more human, whereas in here, it was just kind of like, I don't believe that you two are married. Like, why are you together, you know? So I had moments where I didn't like it, and then I had moments where I did like it. So it got 3 stars. And then the next one, and the last one I read for that vlog, which I'm not going to spend much time on, is The Polar Express. I ended up picking up this beautiful edition. I think it's the 25th anniversary edition. I loved this book. I gave it 5 stars. It's a beautiful picture book. Do I need to say much more than this? I feel like everyone knows The Polar Express at this point, knows what it's about, what to expect. It was cute. It made me, like, nostalgic. I loved it. 5 stars. I don't know what else to say. I then picked up The Kingdom by Jess Rothenberg, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars. This is kind of like a dystopian sci-fi look a little bit. It takes place in what is equivalent of like a Disney World, a Disneyland kind of, you know, theme park, but it follows these, they're called, what are they even called? Like, they don't call them robots or like AI, but that's basically what they are. So they're called fantasies, and they are android hybrid princesses whose sole purpose is to make dreams come true. So they look like these princesses, and they're like robotic, but they are really taught to think that the world hates them because they are these non-human beings, and so they're thought to be protected inside the kingdom. And so it follows our main character, who I think is Anna. Yeah, Anna. And she kind of runs into this worker that is in the kind of kingdom, and like you're not supposed to talk to, like, the fantasies aren't supposed to talk to the workers and the workers aren't supposed to talk to the fantasies, but they do. And he kind of opens up her brain, and this takes place in like a mixed media kind of format, because you've got a trial as well taking place way in the future from like the events of this, so you're getting trial snippets, interview snippets in between these chapters. So it was really interesting. I didn't like the end. I liked the process. I liked having those snippets in there. It was really interesting to kind of see these dual timelines take place. I didn't know what was happening for like the first third of the book, because you're really confused. You're just like thrown in. You're so confused onto what's happening. You're trying to grasp this world and you're not sure what it is. So it does have that aspect to it, which can be very confusing. So the first third is probably, if you're someone who likes DNF relatively early on and you're reading this, I would give it, you know, probably about halfway before it can actually really start to make sense, because you kind of have to follow these two timelines for them to make sense together. But the end felt really rushed to me. It felt like it was a patched up kind of ending, because this is a standalone story, so there is no other beyond this one. However, I felt like it is set up to have a second one if there is need of a second one, or if the author wants to write a second one. It ends in a way that's could be set up for a second one. But at the same time, it just, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, it was really quick, it was really fast-paced, and it just ended. Like, I feel like we needed a couple more chapters at the end to really solidify what we're doing, because, like, it just ended. Like, you're really, like, quick, and then it's over, and you're like, wait a second, how did I get here? So it is very dystopian and trippy in that sense, but it was really interesting formatting of the story. I really appreciated the format of how this was laid out with the, you know, multimedia elements stacked between the chapters, which I did appreciate. Is it the best thing ever? No. But I still, that's been like my sentence for this entire video is it the best thing ever? No. But, I mean, seriously, I've kind of fallen out of love with YA sci-fi a little bit. I just think I haven't read it very often. So, like, I was just kind of like, meh. But I will say the end, like the last fourth of this, really had me on the edge of my seat. I wanted to know what was going on, and I'm glad I read it, because it was good. I just don't really know what happened. The next one that I picked up and finished was The Answer Is by Alex Trebek. So this is his, I mean, it's not really a memoir, it's not really an autobiography, it's exactly what it says, reflections on my life. So in the introduction, Alex was talking about how we'd been asked to write kind of an autobiography or kind of a memoir of his life, and he just never really wanted to do that. That just didn't seem interesting to him. That's not how I wanted it to go. But in the last year, in like 2020, last year of his life, he really, like, once he kind of got sick and started and announced to the world that he had cancer, he really just wanted to write down bits and pieces of things that he learned from his life. And so that's exactly what it is. So they're like really short chapters that have pictures, and then like it's literally like, that was it, 2 pages. And there's hundreds of them in here. And they're always titled The Answer Is, The Answer Was, Who Is, things like that. And he starts with his, you know, growing up, and he does end with his time on Jeopardy. But you see his transition to it, and you kind of learn a lot of the behind the scenes of Jeopardy, which I found fascinating. Like, I loved how he did this. I loved how he kind of, you know, formatted this in a bunch of small bits and pieces, because it's exactly what it sounds like. He just wanted to share little small things and things that he learned throughout his life with the world. And that's what this book was. So I did end up giving this one 5 stars. I highly, highly recommend, if you can, to physically read this while you listen to the audiobook, because the audiobook is split between Ken Jennings and Alex Trebek. So he does the beginning and like the introduction, and then he does the very last chapter as well. And then there's a couple chapters in here where he talks about his wife, and there's a chapter on Ken in here, and so he does that one. And then one of the other Jeopardy champions, like the ones that were on for a very long time, I think it was James Holtzauer might be the other one he did, but the rest of it was read by Ken, which was just kind of an interesting experience, because they clearly created some bond through like the Jeopardy process. And it was, I don't know, it's just really kind of cool to see someone who so respected Alex tell his story, and then at the same time just see all these really fascinating snippets of his life. And like I said, I learned so much about him on Jeopardy and the Jeopardy experience, which I just found fascinating. So I highly recommend, if you just need like snippets, if you want to read something kind of like a coffee table book or something like that where you can just dip in and out of, I think this is a good book to do that with. But I really, really enjoyed my time reading this, and I'm really glad that I got around to it because it was so good. And then I picked up the first one in the 39 Clues, which is The Maids of Bones, and this one is written by Rick Riordan. So this is a series that I actually didn't know until I got into it. But we follow our main characters, Dan and Amy. And at the beginning of this book, their great aunt, someone in their family that this really means a lot to them, passes away, and in her will she basically puts in this thing where the entire family is known to be kind of clever and the best of the best are part of this family, and they are thought of as the odd American cousins basically, and no one wants to spend their time with them and waste their time on them and things like that. And so in this will she basically says there's a huge secret, but you have to give $1 million. Like, everyone can walk out of here with $1 million check, but if you want to learn something, you have to tear up and burn that check, and then you'll get one clue of 39 clues that'll lead you to this great thing about the family. So these siblings decide to do it, and this just takes them on a grand adventure. So I found this interesting because I didn't understand the series. So this series is, I think, 10 books long, and each book is written by somebody different, but it follows the same characters. So I just thought that was really interesting. I'm sure many people actually knew that's what this was about, but we've got the first, I think, 6 or so, if that's right. But yeah, I did pick this one up. I needed something a little easier to read after having read some really thick things. I wanted to get something small, and as we were in like the last couple of days of the year, and so I decided to pick this one up. What did I end up rating this? I ended up giving this one 4 stars. It stressed me out. I'm not gonna lie, it stressed me out because these kids are going on this grand adventure, and it's just utterly crazy, just chaos crazy, but at the same time they've got all of their extended cousins and extended family out to get them, and they're all so mean to these kids. Like, they're such bullies. Like, grown adults are saying things to children that should never be said. Anyway, so I have feelings towards this series. Will I continue? Probably, but I'm not sure when. It's not one that I feel like I need to pick up right away, but I'd like to get around to it at some point. I'm invested now, but not a whole lot. And the very, very last book that I read in 2021 was one that I got for Christmas. I know, crazy. No, it was actually the one that my husband said in the TBR. If you watched that, like, one of the prompts was like recommended, or no, recently bought, and he came in with like a box. And it was a book he was giving me for Christmas. So that one turned out to be Miss Iceland, and it is by an Icelandic author. So I'm just gonna hold this here so you guys can see it, because there is absolutely no way that I'm going to be able to pronounce that. I don't know. But this one basically, I'm going to get all these names wrong, I'm sorry, but it follows our main character, Hekla, and she is in the 60s, and she wants to become a writer, but she is also unmarried at a time when you could only be married and have children, or like work as a waitress. Like, those were your options. So she moves in with her gay best friend, which, again, at a time when gay was not accepted, and it's just the two of them trying to figure it out, live life, and she ends up working in this like weird cafe thing where like men are really gross to her a lot and touch her in places that shouldn't be touched without consent. But she gets in a not great relationship, and then like she moves, and it's like a whole mess. Here's the thing though, I don't know what this book is about. I read it, and I don't know what the purpose of this book is. Was it just a character study on this woman in the 60s to kind of explain what it's like? Is it like a story she wanted to tell of this woman who's like, life is not great? Also, I don't know what happened at the end. I read the last 2 chapters. I showed the last couple of paragraphs to both my husband and my father and mom, who were like here when I was finishing. I don't know what happened. I don't know how the story ends. I don't. But yeah, I have a lot of issues with this book, and I think the biggest problem that I can think of with this book is that there must be some sort of language barrier, because this was translated from Icelandic to English, and of course some things had to be changed in order for it to do that. So I'm wondering if this is a much more eloquent story in its original language, whereas when I read it, it was very simplistic. The sentences were very short and to the point. There was nothing particularly exciting about it. Like, I'm not sure what the point of the story is. I don't know why the author thought this is what it needed to tell. I also don't know why it won a bunch of awards. I don't. And I read a bunch of Goodreads reviews of people like raving it, and I don't get it. I don't understand. So, yeah, I love that my husband thought of me. And I feel so bad, but I ended up giving it 3 stars, because I did have, like, I kept reading. Like, it kept making me want to continue, because I was trying to find what was going on. And I loved the best friend. Like, he was kind of great. But my one complaint, I don't know why this was a story. I don't know what the point of it was. I don't know what the author was trying to convey. And I don't know how it ended. So I've got a lot of questions on this one. But honestly, I wish there was an audiobook for this. There's not. I can't find it anywhere. I'm sure there's one, like, in Icelandic from the original story, but I couldn't find one. And I feel like that would have helped a whole lot, because there are so many places and so many, like, not just places, but street names and other situations and, like, other names for things that aren't translated, obviously. Like, for example, we're not going to say, like, Target, the store, has a different name in a different language. Target's the name of the store, so everyone's going to call it Target. It's kind of like that, but street names and things like that. I can't pronounce any of them. They're about 16 letters long. None of them make sense to me, and I think they're street names. Most of them are street names, but there were some that weren't, and I didn't understand what was being referenced. So I might have also missed a whole bunch just because I didn't know what was going on. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, it's still, I'm still very conflicted. I'm not sure what I think about this book. So I'm saying it's a 3-star because it's very middle of the road. But I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know. I read it and I don't know what I think. But that's it. Those are all of the books that I finished out the 2020 year with, my last wrap up for the year. I hope that you guys enjoyed. Let me know if there's any of the books that I read in this video or talked about in this video that you guys have read, or something that you finished out the year with. I'd love to know what your very, very last book of 2021 was. Did you end off on a really good book, or were you confused like me? Let me know. But if you've made it this far, thank you guys for sticking around. Feel free to leave the book stack emoji, because I have a book stack. Let's do that. That was fun. I'm going to start incorporating that because I had fun doing that last time. So if you don't know what to say, feel free to comment book stack. But if you liked this video, and I very much hope that you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe down below if you want to be part of this awesome growing family. I've also got all my social media down there, as well as other fun bookish links, so don't forget to check all of that out, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!